Previously on Funny Science Fiction.
Fallen and broken his neck and was dead, and people were freaking out, and then Shatner stood up and said, "Gotcha!"
Hello and welcome to the Funny Science Fiction Podcast.
The podcast where we talk about extremely important world events, just not of this world and not of anything real. Our special guest host today is Frank Duran from the Warp Shelf Podcast. If Frank looks familiar to you, there's good reason for that. Now, Frank was a former guest on our show, and so far, our lone meme recipient. He's secretly hoping, and actually not so secretly, hoping that somebody else is going to join him sometime soon. Perhaps it'll be Scott. Frank, thanks for stooping back down to our level, buddy.
Thanks for having me. I'm so excited to be here. It was great being on last time, and I'm excited to co-host with you and talk some more sci-fi.
Yeah, now you just get to ask the questions. You don't have to sit there and try to think of an answer.
That'll be good.
All right. So go ahead and tell us who we got here today, Frank.
We have Scott Curtis with us today, a fellow podcaster who hosts a show called Behind the Bits, where Scott talks with comedians about their craft, their inspirations, and what they love to do. Thanks for being here today, Scott.
Hey, thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
Yeah, we're excited to have you. We're excited to talk about a couple cool things that you've got going on, not just with Behind the Bits, but we're going to talk about something else here in just a moment. But before we get into all the cool levels of geekdom and nerdery that surrounds Scott Curtis, tell us a bit about your podcast, Behind the Bits, and what do you like to chat about over there? We mentioned it, Frank mentioned it rather, just real briefly, but give us an overview of what's going on over there.
Yeah, the high-level overview, I started this about a year ago, and I had been doing stand-up for about 3 years when I started it. It's everything I want in a podcast where comedians talk to each other, and I couldn't find on the internet. So I called a serious talk about stand-up comedy, which means, I go into it talking to a comedian just about the craft, about how they get paid, how they recorded their album, how they filmed their special, all the stuff that goes into being a comedian. And I try to make a compendium of knowledge that any comedian or comedy nerd can go to and find out what the inside is. It's kind of like a magician showing their tricks a little bit. And so I keep it pretty serious. I mean, we laugh a little bit, but I don't do the morning zoo type talk that a lot of the comedians do. So I think I'm filling a niche there.
So no, hey, welcome to the morning zoo.
Yeah.
None of that.
Yeah, it's pretty straightforward, and most of the comics like it because they actually get to talk about what they're passionate about instead of just going over their jokes and joking about, whatever the weather or whatever.
Oh, that's great. Yeah. They don't have to wait for Bob and the Chopper.
I love the show myself because it is so brass tacks. It gets right to it. You guys are an actual true behind the scenes on stand-up instead of just being, like, oh, let's say another joke or let's reference a stand-up and let's talk about how you came up with that bit of stand-up.
Yeah.
It's like, it's very deeper than that.
Or they talk 15 minutes about a time that they worked together 10 years ago. That's totally inside, and it loses me,
Yeah.
and I think it loses other listeners too. So yeah, I always tell them that, I'm not going to look like I have much personality, but this is the way the show goes. It's more for knowledge than it is for entertainment. So, yeah.
Yeah. I have to admit, when I first started listening to Behind the Bits, I went into it with the wrong expectations. So I knew that you were a stand-up comedian through our conversation, everything else. But when I started listening to it, I was expecting so I'm sure I'm going to offend somebody with this, but I was expecting like the Bob and Tom show, where it's two comedians sitting across from each other at this table and nothing but I tell a poorly rehearsed joke. Oh, there's the laugh track. I'm going to tell another off-time joke. Oh, here's another laugh track.
Yeah.
That's what I was expecting. It was a pleasant surprise to hear an actual conversation between two guys who are working their craft.
Yeah. It's funny you mentioned Bob and Tom because I've actually had 4 writers for Bob and Tom on the show. And I used to live in Indy in the 80s before Bob and Tom got syndicated, and I used to listen to them every morning. So yeah, I know Bob and Tom.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
used to listen to them almost every morning. I got sick of the canned laughter sound. I just couldn't do it anymore.
Yeah.
It just kind of started becoming the same show every morning.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, they
but-
had some great bits in the 80s. Though.
Oh,
They had
yeah.
Dick Nixon and Haji, and they were like a superhero duo. It was
Uh-huh.
great. Yeah.
yeah, they had some great stuff. Donnie Baker, still one of my favorite. I'll laugh every time that comes on.
Yeah.
Got a boat for sale. Swear to God, I do. Anyway, okay, so we'll move along from there. But yeah, so guys, if you haven't caught on yet, it's a really cool show. Make sure you check out Behind the Bits.
Absolutely. So I mean, I kind of want to ask some comedian questions before we get into like the sci-fi questions. Is that weird? Is that okay to do? Am I breaking the rules, Tim? Like, is this wrong?
We'll pretend it's Deadpool and Fourth Wall. So go for it.
Okay, great.
Yeah,
That's a good
yeah.
idea. That's a good idea. Just break the fourth wall here. So obviously, like this is a very comedian heavy show that you do. So I obviously have some comedian questions. What comedian inspires you the most? What do you watch and just go like, wow, that is so effortless? Like, how does he even or she do that?
Right. When my first guest was Tom Dreesen. He was my first comedian. I saw him on Mike Douglas in the 70s, and I just fell in love with him. And back then, if you like somebody, what you did is you found the TV guide and you just looked at all the shows to see when they were going to be on. So I saw him on Mike Douglas, Merv, Dinah Shore. He did Carson a lot back then.
Nice.
So I was really into him. And then it turns out he's one of Dave Letterman's best friends. And Dave, when he started the morning show, I got into Dave. I used to skip school to watch the morning show, but it wasn't on very long, so I didn't skip much school. But then he got the late show, and I watched that just religiously. Never got any sleep as a kid. I just watched that. And then I followed him all the way through his career. So he's like my ultimate guy.
Nice.
And you don't think of him as a stand-up comic, but that's how he started. He actually started as a weatherman and a radio guy, but then got into comedy and was one of the originals at the Comedy Store.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
I also loved either it was your last episode or 2 episodes ago where you got deep with about the Comedy Store. You got deep. I think it was Bluegrass, or am I mispronouncing the name? It's something Blue.
Bluestein.
Bluestein. Thank
Yeah.
you.
Yeah.
Bluestein. I thought it was so interesting because he was one of the first Comedy Store comedians, and I
Yeah.
thought, and it seems like you've gathered a few of these guys who were the original cast of the Comedy Store.
Yeah, I'm in a group with a lot of the old timers, and they allow me to talk to them sometimes, and it's a really cool because the funny thing is I don't think anybody's invented anything new in comedy for a long time. You think people are really cool and new, but even if you look at Mitch Hedberg, who was he was revolutionary. If you look at him and you put his set next to Henny Youngman, it's the exact same meter. They're doing the exact same thing. So
Yeah.
there's nothing really new under the sun. It's what you do with what you know. And a lot of these guys invented it. Like Bluestein was one of the first guys that actually did crowd work.
Yeah.
And that is real, that's cool in and of itself, because you got people now that are, like Brad Garrett is a big crowd work guy, Paula Poundstone, and Ian Bagg, who I've had on the show. I mean,
Yeah.
almost all his show is crowd work. So yeah, it's really neat to see where that comes from. And I want to make sure I get the old timers on, because the young people seem to appreciate them.
Yeah. It's
That's
like
cool.
they already look up to them, and then they actually being able to hear them talk behind the scenes is so
Yeah.
great.
And the other thing is they're available. And they love to talk. So
There's that. Is that-
So is that. But to tie it back to sci-fi, you're exactly right. There is nothing new in the game. It's how you remix it. Like, I mean,
Yep.
look at Star Wars. It's like that story's been
Right.
told 1,000
Mhm.
times. It's
Yeah.
the hero's arc, but it's how they told it and how we keep telling it. That
It's the same
matters.
old tropes, just redone in a different way.
Right.
Yeah,
How you package
exactly.
it.
So better yet, who living or dead would be a dream guest on Behind the Bits? Who would you be like, okay, Necromancer, please raise him from the dead so I may interview him, or is alive right now and you don't need to involve the Necromancer?
Yeah, I can actually give you two. Dead would be Gary Shandling. I'm really
nice.
sorry I missed having him on because he passed away. And live is still Dave Letterman. I would love to get him on. The funny thing is he doesn't even know how to access a podcast.
Yeah.
He did Marin's podcast and he says, I'll never listen to this because I don't know how. So,
I love that.
yeah, that's my dream. And the only in I have is Tom Dreesen is a friend of his. And I may leverage that because Tom and I still talk. So hopefully that'll happen.
Not what you know, it's who you know.
Yep.
Exactly. And last comedy question. You do seem like a comedy geek. So I knew a couple of comedy geeks in college and they just, they didn't even watch movies or TV. They
Mhm.
just watch comedy specials. Are you the same?
Not really. I actually don't consume a lot of media. So I really got into the shows of the 80s, like the one from the Comedy Store, and Norm Crosby had a show, and there were some really cool shows, and I did watch those fairly religiously, and I watched all the comics on Carson and Letterman and stuff like that. But yeah, I went through a fairly long period of time where I just didn't consume a whole lot of media, and when the internet came about and YouTube and I could look this stuff up, that's when I started digging a little bit deeper.
Oh, what were you living life? What were you doing? Like not
Yeah,
consuming media?
living
How is that
life.
possible?
Yeah,
I don't
living-
understand that.
Living life, reading books. I've always
Whoa.
been a bookie guy, and just I'm kind of an outlier. I don't get into trends, and I don't get into what everybody else gets into. So I was reading Sherlock Holmes books, stories, just all the way through high school, and I read David Copperfield like 3 or 4 times and stuff like that. So I'm nerdy, but I'm just kind of book nerdy.
There you go. That's totally okay. Again,
Yeah.
like there's no wrong nerd,
Yeah.
like absolutely not. It's just I don't I'm sure none of us understand. Me and Tim just consume
There's a
Star
book?
Wars and sci-fi on an unhealthy
Yeah.
level. Like,
There's-
like-
Yeah.
There's books.
Uh-huh.
I have those. I have audiobooks. Is that the same thing?
I
Somebody
do a lot
talks
of
to me.
audiobooks. The funny thing is I thought I was a pretty fast reader, and my wife and I lived in Indianapolis in the 80s, and I always bought all of Stephen King's books right when they came out, hardcover, ready to go. And
Okay.
I don't remember which book it was. I think it may have been either it or Gerald's Game or something like that. And when I read a book and I like something, I go back and read that page, and I guess it takes me longer because my wife picked up that book. She took a vacation and we weren't going anywhere, and she finished it in like 2 days, and it took me like 3 weeks. So I found out I'm a pretty slow reader.
No, it would have taken me longer than 3 weeks. That's a huge book.
Yeah,
So-
it is a gigantic book. I
Yeah.
remember
Yeah.
seeing the hardcover and it's like,
Yeah,
oh,
it's massive.
Yeah,
So
it's a great book.
one of my recent discoveries, honestly, is audiobooks. I hadn't been listening or reading books, and not like I probably should have, because that's what I tell my kids they should do. But I got into audiobooks this past year with Ernest Cline, and I don't know if you guys are familiar with him, but he did Ready Player One.
yes.
Okay.
Yes, and
And,
Ready Player 2 came out.
Yeah, Ready Player 2 came
Mhm.
out at the end of November. I'm way behind on my listening to that. It's one of the shames of only being 5 minutes away from your office. It's kind of hard to get a lot of listening in. But Ready Player 2, and he also, I don't know if you're familiar with this or not, there was a movie a couple years back. This is our nice transition into sci-fi talk. In case you weren't, I just want to make sure you guys are up to speed with me.
In case you were keeping up.
That's right. I want to make sure I'm towing you guys along at the proper speed. He helped write the screenplay for a movie that I absolutely love called Fanboys.
Oh,
Okay.
So if you haven't seen Fanboys and you like Star Wars, it's one of those movies that you kind of have to watch. It's all about these kids who grow up in Ohio and they decide that they're going to break into Lucas Ranch to watch episode 1, The Phantom Menace. It's fantastic.
Oh, wow.
And the pop culture references, because Ernest Cline is real big with pop culture references.
yeah.
And the amount of pop culture references and the Star Wars references that he gets away with in this movie are phenomenal. The sound effects, everything else. Carrie Fisher has a cameo in it. Billy D. Williams has a cameo in it.
Wow.
Yeah.
I remember seeing the trailer for this movie, but I've never seen it. It looked really funny. Like,
It's one of my favorites. I watch it with regularity. So yeah, definitely check that out.
I mean, spoiler alert, are they disappointed after seeing the Phantom Menace, or are they just like hyped at the end?
They don't really say, and I can't say anything more than that because it would be a spoiler complete. So
Okay.
When you watch the movie, you'll understand why I say I can't say whether they liked it or not.
There you go.
That's all I will say about, and that's all I got to say about that. Anyway, but yeah, check out Fanboys. But yeah, Ernest Cline. If you're listening, Ernest Cline, I would very much like to have you on the show. I mean, like, really like to have you on the show. And also Will Wheaton, who reads the audiobooks. You're amazing. I love your stuff. If you're listening,
Will Wheaton. Oh,
Will Wheaton, amazing. Would love to have him on.
And that's really the thing about audiobooks is the narrator can make it or break it. It can be a great book and a lousy narrator. Yeah.
Oh yeah. Hearing an old dude try to do a girl's voice is always the worst in an audiobook. When he's like, and then he walks up and then he tries to do a girl voice and he's like, you're just like, oh no, this is not good.
One of the things I like about what Will Wheaton does is that he doesn't do that. He doesn't do voices. He just reads it. If he's okay, so for instance, in Ready Player 1 and 2, if he's Artemis, which is one of the main girl characters, it's Will Wheaton's voice, but he's reading Artemis's lines with a little bit different inflection on it, but he's not trying to do a voice. But I tell you what, his reading, he spot on. Wheaton crushes it. So all right, so enough of me fanboying over those guys. So Scott, in addition to your Behind the Bits podcast, you're now participating in another show called Do I Hate Star Wars?
Yeah.
So let's talk about the wars.
Yeah.
All right. So what movies have you watched so far?
Well, we're going to, first off, I can't do any spoiler alerts on how I feel about them, but I've watched A New Hope, Empire Strikes Back, and the third one. I can't remember the name of it.
Attack of the Teddy Bears.
You're watching it in the right order.
Yeah, Ewok thing. Yeah, I'm doing in chronological order just because that's how I started.
Okay.
Yeah, the story behind that is it's kind of funny because it was actually a joke of mine that I had to take out because, man, there's a lot of Star Wars fans out there. And so in 77, I was what I was. Like I said, I was a book nerd. I wasn't very good in school. I was starting to hang with a wrong crowd and I just didn't really fit in. So a bunch of the, more nerdy, bookish type people were going to go see Star Wars, and they invited me to go along, and we went together. This is 77. And I think I was 13, and they just loved it. I mean, they were hooked from the beginning, and I was like, this is a bad movie. And I didn't, I wasn't like visceral about it. I wasn't like, oh, this is awful, I hate it. I was just like, it's kind of bad acting and it just doesn't really appeal to me. And I forgot about it. And I just never watched another one. If it was on TV, I'd turn it to a different channel. I just never watched another one. And so I go for years and years and years. And I decide that I'm going to take the stance that I hate Star Wars for my comedy bit, and I had a few jokes that I'd put out there about how bad Star Wars was, and if Han and Chewie can talk to each other, why don't they use each other's language? And why do the Stormtroopers have armor if it's not going to work? Just things like that. And let me tell you, it didn't work.
You got a lot of, well, actually,
Yeah.
the armor is not good enough to start a blaster.
Yeah, I lost an audience really quick. So I did that one, and I also did that Led Zeppelin's overrated. So between those
you were playing
things,
the favorites. You were just
Yeah.
like, let me get them out.
You were
Let's
swinging
just-
for the fences on those.
Yeah. Yeah, I swung for the fences and ended up in the dugout taped up. So it wasn't good for me. So fast forward to now, I watched the last episode of the 3rd season of Cobra Kai. So I don't consume much media, but I watched that. And the funny thing is my wife's saying, why are we watching this? This sucks. And I'm saying, I know it does, but I have to watch it. I love it. And it's melodramatic, overacted, all the stuff that was in Star Wars. And I thought, you know what, if I like this, maybe I should give Star Wars another try. And let's do a podcast about it, because gosh, everybody's got at least 2 podcasts. So why shouldn't I? And I got together with my buddy, Zach Wiseman, who is a Star Wars super nerd. And we're going to do it. I think we're going to start recording tomorrow, actually.
Oh, awesome.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's
All right.
good
Note
hear.
to self: invite Zach Wiseman.
I
So,
Zach would be a great guest.
all right, cool.
mean,
So-
good. You're watching it in the right order, because you're saying you're watching it as it came out. That is. I mean, I always say that's the best way to watch it, because that's the way everybody else experienced it,
Yeah.
so why go some other weird route?
Yeah.
My brother was introducing his wife recently to Star Wars because she had never seen Star Wars, and he started with episode 1, and I literally lost my mind at him, because I was like, why would you try to get somebody into Star Wars and show them one of the worst rated movies of all time? Why would you be like, oh, here's a really crappy one, I'm sure you'll watch the rest, I'm sure it'll be fine.
Yeah.
And it's like, and if you're trying to watch it in episode 1, episode 2, episode 3, you got to get through episode 1 and 2 first, which I know a lot of people listening to the podcast are like, what do you guys say about Attack of the Clones? But Attack of the Clones is bad. Think about it. But it's like, and me and Tim probably disagree a little bit on that. But
No, it's not a very good movie. It has good points to it. I will say there's not enough of the Geonosis battle, and if they would have included more of the Geonosis battle, I probably would have liked it more.
I think
that-
all of Clone Wars is what makes it better. Clone Wars just sits there being like, oh, that was bad, let me fix it.
Yeah, if the Clone Wars cartoons wasn't, if you marry those two together, then it becomes much more palatable. You take out that and the really bad pseudo Shakespearean "I love you, no, I love you, no, I love you" dialogue. And Scott, you'll know exactly what I'm talking about as soon as you get to that movie. All I'm going to say is Lakeside House, and there's a pear, and I wish that the knife would have cut something else. But anyway,
yeah, and mostly I think you just picked on the wrong Star Wars, because you can make fun of Star Wars. It's just the prequels. You gotta stick to making fun of the prequels. Everyone loves that.
Yeah. I just took the whole franchise down, and that was a mistake.
Now, for those of us who are Star Wars fans, we have typically a favorite character, someone that we can identify with. Something about their personality draws us in. Now, for me, personally, I'm a big Han Solo fan.
Nice.
Probably even more so of the actor Harrison Ford, because the way he acts and the way he does his characters. I mean, so there's a line from going back to Fanboys, why he's the best actor in the world. He's Han Solo, he's Indiana Jones, he's Deck from Blade Runner, Anyway,
He's the guy from The Fugitive. That's probably one of my
Yeah.
favorite Harrison Ford movies. Is him in The Fugitive.
Hmm.
Like,
absolutely, yeah. I like Harrison Ford so much so that my son Nolan, his middle name is named after Harrison.
hey,
So yeah, so his name is Nolan Harrison. Nolan's not quite sure that he likes that name yet, but he's stuck with it. So anyway, is there a character in Star Wars yet that you found that you like, the one that you identify with a little bit,
So before
is
I
it
do
all
that,
or is it all just stuff and nonsense?
yeah. Well, I got to say before that, I don't normally do my act on a podcast, but I got to do my opening joke that gets the crowd warmed up. So
No, I'm good with it. Go for it.
my opening joke is I'm old, but I'm probably not as old as you think I am. I went into a gas station the other day to get a Diet Sunkissed Orange because that's something I like to get myself. And the cashier, as she was ringing me up, said, "Hey, you look like an older Harrison Ford." And it's amazing how many thoughts can go through your head in the 3 seconds from the cashier to the door. I'm like, "Hey, Harrison Ford's pretty good looking. Nice. I think he's older than me. He's 77 and I'm 56. Hey, young lady, never mind. I should have moisturized." That's my joke. It's morphed through the years, but yeah, that's it used to be my closer and now it's my opener. So yeah, that's
I saw that on YouTube. You performed that at Dr. Grins
yeah.
here in Grand Rapids, Michigan, and I saw a YouTube clip of that, and that was a nice set, by the way. But yeah, as soon as you said I want to do this joke, I'm like, oh, he's gonna tell the Harrison Ford joke.
Yeah, he's gonna
tell the Harrison Ford joke. So, yeah, that's a good one. I like that.
that is so insulting to call you an older Harrison Ford. You're like, Harrison
Yeah.
Ford's looked old since the 80s. Like,
Yeah.
what is good?
Yeah.
What do you mean?
Yep.
Like,
Yeah,
No.
I used to do that joke different. I used to go back and say, "Hey, what's your point of reference?" And she's like, "What do you mean?" I'm like, "What's the last Harrison Ford movie you saw?" And I would always do the last one that came out. Like the last one, I think is the one with the dog.
Call of the Wild. Yep.
Yeah, Call of
Yeah.
the
Oh
Wild.
yeah,
so-
he looks super old in that one. That one's
Yeah.
That one, or if they had chosen 42, the Jackie Robinson story where he plays Branch Rickey.
yeah,
Oh man, he looked rough
yeah.
in that movie.
Now that
So-
joke really went over well when the second Blade Runner came out
Oh, there you go.
because she would say, the cashier would say Blade Runner, and I'm like, "Oh, that's great." She said, "Yeah, the second one." And, that joke wrote itself, though, pretty much.
Yeah.
A cashier actually did say that, so thank you to that cashier.
for the endless entertainment.
Nice.
That's great.
I like that.
Oh man.
But let's
but-
talk about a favorite character. So so far, I kind of like that Billy D. Williams character because he's kind of a bob and weave type guy. He
Yeah.
does what he needs to do to take care of himself, but he's not afraid to stick his neck out for people too. So yeah, I really like his character, and I thought he was one of the better actors too.
Yeah, Billy D. Is Lando Calrissian.
Yeah.
Oh man, he's so good.
Smooth.
He's just smooth. He's just butter the whole
Yeah.
time. He's just the whole time. And it's one of those things that they did the Han Solo movie, and I know, yes, Han Solo, you just said it. He's amazing. But do the Lando movie. Like, why are we messing around for? Let's do a Lando movie. Like, and bring Billy D back for that. Because he was great in the sequel trilogy. He was still like, I'm Lando, baby. And you're
Yeah.
just like, sure you are. Keep going.
Mhm.
Like,
Yeah, same. Yeah, when you get to the sequel, you'll see he's very much the same mentality, personality. He's just Billy D. Williams. He's
just
Yeah.
smooth.
Williams.
Yeah.
Billy D. is smooth. So
I will always say it though. It's the biggest tragedy that we will not see Billy D. Williams as Two-Face in a Batman movie because they did 2 movies where he's Harvey Dent, and they're like, oh, there's Billy D. Williams as Harvey Dent, and everybody who's a Batman fan sitting there going, oh yeah, they're gonna splash his face with acid. Come on, Two-Face. And they just never do it. They're just like,
Yeah.
no.
No, but they're like, Aaron Eckhart, here we go.
Yeah. Burn his face now. Go. Like, very true. I mean, for me, Star Wars wise, I gotta say it's Luke, or it's Obi-Wan. Obi-Wan is Obi-Wan's the best Jedi. Like, you know, like he's the only guy who really like sticks to the Jedi order. Like, you know, like he does what the Jedi wants, you know, like and he does what should be right, you know.
He lived it.
Yeah, exactly.
He lived
And
it.
he's got the best fights other than the Darth Vader fight in episode 4. Every other Obi-Wan fight is amazing. So
Mhm.
gotta give it there.
And frankly, see what I did there? In your interview with us, you called him Daddy Obi-Wan. So
I did.
there
say
is that.
I did scream that at Ewan McGregor when I saw him in the streets in LA. I did. He was far away, so he probably didn't hear me. But I was like, "Daddy Obi-Wan!" Like I was like, you. I was there I was doing a gig in LA and they were having the premiere for Birds of Prey downstairs. So I was just looking down at Margaret Robbie and Obi-Wan and I was like, I was just like, those are amazing. Like,
Today is a good day.
it's a good day. I got to yell at Obi-Wan. This is
There
great.
you go.
I did get to tell him from very high up that I had the high ground. So that's important.
Oh, there you go.
Yeah. Let's talk about the aged Obi-Wan though. You know, Alec Guinness, you know, you got to admit, he looked pretty bored.
Actually, if you read interviews or see interviews that he did, Alec Guinness did it because it was a paycheck.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
He did not like the thought of it. He didn't like he thought the scripts were garbage. He didn't have two nice words to put together about Star Wars. He did it because it was he got paid pretty good.
Yep.
He was the star power that they were hoping to use to draw people in.
Yeah.
You know, I think whatever George Lucas's budget was for the first movie, 3/4 of it went to get Alec Guinness on set.
I bet.
Yeah.
It was so funny. There's one scene where he's talking to Luke in the first one, and he's like, you know, the force is running through you. You just need to embrace it or something like that. And it just looks like he's going to fall asleep. You know,
Right?
Yeah, hey, Luke, the force night.
It's coming. I swear. It's the force. It'll happen.
It's on the FedEx truck. It'll be here tomorrow.
I think also a lot of the budget goes to Peter Cushing. I think if you have to the budget for the first movie was Peter Cushing and Alec being like, oh yes, we got to get those two actors. You know, like. I think that's also George Lucas just being a fan of old movies. Him just being like, oh, can I get Peter Cushing in my movie? Like, yes,
right. The ultimate bad guy at that point.
I talk about not watching much media, but I did watch a lot of the old Hammer horror films that had Peter Cushing and what's his name, Christopher Lee in them, and love that stuff. And so that was one neat thing I saw because I didn't remember him being in it. So when that came up, I'm like, that's Peter Cushing, isn't it? So I pulled out my phone to make sure that was him, and that was pretty neat.
Yeah. You're gonna be blown away when Count Dooku shows up, and you're like, "Hey, Christopher Lee." You're gonna be like, "Hey, there he is." They brought back Van Helsing and his Dracula all together in one series.
Nice.
And Star Wars is kind of like Harry Potter, where they just kind of start signing anybody who's British, who's famous. You know, at a certain point, they're like, "Oh, you're British and famous, you're in." Like, you know, like we need you in the Harry Potter flick. Let's go. Like,
you can mark that up as another series. I haven't read a single book or watched a single movie.
Oh,
yeah. Well, that makes two of us there, Scott. So I am very much not on the Harry Potter train.
Really?
It does nothing.
Harry Potter guys?
No, it doesn't. It does nothing for me. In fact, I think my favorite thing about Harry Potter, there's a TikTok going around about how it's that J.K. Rowling did not write a masterpiece. She wrote
Star Wars.
Sucky. And the guy goes through. It's a comedy bit.
Yeah, it is a comedy bit. I love that.
That somebody ties in that here's all these parallels between the two stories, and by the end of it, you're going, okay, yeah, he's right, yeah,
he's right.
straight up rip off. Okay, I'm good. I'm like, I don't need to see it. I've already seen him. So, but
I think it's definitely one of those things that I grew up with. The books were everywhere. I was reading the
Sure.
books the day they were coming out. And I admit the movies are not great. The third one's good, A Prisoner of Azkaban, but we're not. The rest of them. So
My kids liked them. They read the books and the movies, and watched the
There you go.
movies. So
and I can't even dog them for being, kids stuff, because I love Percy Jackson.
Oh, see,
love the
I haven't read Percy Jackson.
I love the books are way better than the movie.
Well, the movie, yeah, because they screwed it up and they canceled the whole $1 million franchise. They were like,
yeah,
oh,
'cause
no,
the first
no.
one was decent. The second one was kind of, well, that's where you went with this. But yeah, and then I was watching the second one. I'm like, that's a shame. There's never going to be a third one. We were at the theater. I leaned over to my wife and said that to her. I'm like, it's a shame. Some good books, but we're never going to get a third movie.
yeah.
So,
Yeah, it's like, stop remaking good stuff that's already good. Remake stuff that was bad that definitely has potential. Like there's so
Fantastic
much.
Four. Fantastic Four.
No, stop with the Fantastic Four. No more Fantastic Four.
They get one more third strike. They're out. They get one more try.
Dude, third strike? No, because they had their third strike. They had the Fantastic Four TV show in the 70s, and that was terrible too.
Yeah, that doesn't count.
You're expecting them to turn it around and for them to be like, oh, we did a Spider-Man Far From Home, or we did a Spider-Man Homecoming, and we finally nailed it. No, that's not going to happen.
I'm not even gonna lie. I'd be okay with a Tobey Maguire Spider-Man Fantastic Four at this point, because how bad that last one was.
For me, and this is just speaking as a comic book nerd. Fantastic Four works better in a larger context. And when there's a lot of people on screen and there is and then there's Fantastic Four in the far, far back, that's when they work out best. And you're just like, wow, there's Mr. Fantastic. There's the thing. Instead of being like, here, try to concentrate on these really weird superheroes. Try to really pay attention to Mr. Reed not being here. That's oh my goodness, Tim, I am so sorry. I am being so bad.
Oh, you're fine. You're fine. You are fine.
I can't talk about Fantastic Four with getting too upset. I
hit a hot button. I love it. All right, Frank, you got one more question for Scott here, didn't you?
So, and this is kind of a silly one because, but I thought you would probably be the best one to answer. What sci-fi franchise probably has the best comedic scene? Like, which one would you be like, yeah, they got some nice comedy clubs. Like, I bet.
Yeah. Well, only because I didn't watch very much sci-fi. I would have to say that Star Trek, because I was into the original Star Trek, and I think I watched all the movies. I didn't watch any other Treks after that. So the Picard, all that stuff, I don't know anything about. But the original Star Trek, the series was unintentionally funny sometimes. But the movies, they put some intentional stuff in there that was really funny. I think it was Scotty speaking into a mouse when they were doing the Save the Whales one and stuff like that. I always was very comfortable with those characters, so I could see the humor in it. Yeah. And DeForest Kelley was just a great actor, and his sarcasm with Kirk and Spock is just gold.
I'll agree with that.
Very true. I'll absolutely agree with that. It's like Star Wars takes itself too seriously sometimes, and you can tell Star Trek's like, yeah, but we're still in space wearing pajamas, so let's make a few jokes about this. Like
matching pajamas.
Yeah.
Yes, matching pajamas.
Now, I have made it abundantly clear to not just my full-time co-hosts, but any of the one that will really listen, that I'm not really a Star Trek fan. I never really cared for much from the original series or the movies, especially not when they went to go, talk to the whales. Really lost me on that one.
He's right though. That's the funniest one. That
It
straight
is.
up
Yeah.
makes me laugh constantly. Like,
Well, the part where like they're walking through San Francisco and they're trying to look hip, you know.
Uh,
But yeah, however, I did like Star Trek 2 and
Wrath of Khan.
The Wrath of Khan and the
Con.
exactly, yeah. And the
Because I know you weren't saying Into
episode.
Darkness, so it had
No.
to be Wrath of Khan.
No. Actually, I don't mind the J.J. Abrams movies so much. I don't think that they played Khan very well. I like Cumberbatch. He's a great actor, and he could have been perfect for that role. He was written poorly.
Well, that's because they thought that it would be so cool to reveal it was Khan, like they're
Right.
like, hey, we'll drop it that it's Khan. But really, everyone knew it was Khan the whole time. And then when they reveal it, it doesn't actually like move anything. He says like the line where he's like, I am Khan. And like Kirk kind of like looks around and is like, are we supposed to know who this guy is? Like
Anybody else care? Is this the
like
thing?
they care, like, and,
Yeah.
and that's the problem there is that like the Khan was built up in the original series, like
Right.
you kind of knew what he was, and then
Right,
they
but there was
built
the
him
episode Space
character-wise.
Seed in the first year of the original series, which set up Wrath of Khan.
Exactly.
So I like Space Seed. I like Wrath of Khan because there's some context there,
Mhm.
and I thought it had a kind of a cool storyline.
Yeah.
So Scott, for you, is there any episode or storyline that you liked over the course of the Star Trek series or movies that really kind of stuck out to you? Or if somebody goes, hey, what was it that you liked about Star Trek? And you go, well, aside from their matching pajamas, I liked.
Yeah, I always felt like Star Trek was there was a element of hope there, and I know that that's in Star Wars too, but I like that element of hope and the fact that they didn't take themselves so seriously, except for the first one. The first one was very serious. That's where they're going to see V'ger, and it turns out to be Voyager. But for some reason, that's my favorite of the whole series because it's so immersive. They said it was like probably 45 to an hour too long, but it's so immersive. And when Spock's in that little jetpack and it goes on for like 10 minutes and it probably should have been 10 seconds, I actually really like that. For some reason that drew me in. I saw it in the theater when it first came out, so that really drew me in, and I've probably watched it 3 or 4 times since then.
Nice.
Okay.
I feel like movies and TV had all the time in the world before, like now it's just like move. And before they would walk up, pick up a phone, dial the phone, answer the phone, like, and you're like, is this happening? What's happening? You're like, are we allowed to do this? Are we allowed to watch this? Shouldn't we cut away? Like, what's going on here? Like, and Star Trek, the motion picture feels like that. They're like, they had all the time in the world. And they're willing to tell you about it. Like,
There's a whole lot of exposition in that, and that's okay. For some reason, it grew on me, and I absolutely love it.
Yeah, I love that movie too. I feel like it's one of the ones that doesn't feel like a movie, but feels like a really extended long episode. And you're like, nice.
Yeah.
Nice.
Nick just sent me a message saying that it was about a 45-minute tour of just the space station.
Yeah.
That's right. That feels right.
Yeah.
All right. Well,
And that's
cool.
why you can't really diss anybody for liking anything. That's one of the things this pandemic has taught me. Whatever you like, you like. Don't diss them for liking Star Wars or Star Trek or not liking Harry Potter. Just whatever. Just everybody like what you like. Find the other people who like it, but keep yourself open to other stuff too. And you can't really get down on people after the whole Cobra Kai thing. I mean, people are into that, and you know what? If you
Cobra Kai really humbled you here, it sounds like.
if you like that stuff, then you know what? Anything else you like, that's totally fine. Grey's Anatomy, I don't care. It's good.
Well, we'll agree to that. I agree to that with one caveat. We all gang up on Babylon 5. Agreed?
I was gonna say, can we
I don't
beat up
know.
on the My Little Pony people? Like what? Like, do we have to beat up on Babylon? Like,
All right. Well, cool. Well, Scott, thank you for being so patient with us and being willing to talk nerd and geek with us. But we have one more thing as we come to the close of our show here. Now, one of the things that we like to do with each and every one of our guests, and this is where Frank failed epically. The last time he was here, he's our lone meme recipient.
The only one to lose this game.
That's right. We like to play a quiz game with each and every one of our people that come on. Okay. So I have a Star Wars for Beginners quiz for you.
All
Okay.
right.
Yeah. So now there's 5 questions. If you get 3 right, we're going to send you one of these super cool coffee mugs that says I gave to the Red Shirt Widows and Orphans Fund. Okay.
Nice.
Now, if you get 4 right, I forgot to bring it with me, but pretend I'm showing you a copy of Drayton Allen's book, which Drayton Allen is the founder of our show and our Facebook group, the Funny Science Fiction Facebook group, which has we're over a little over 104,000 members right now.
Nice.
But anyway, he wrote a book all about a guy who wanted to join Starfleet, couldn't get in, so he became a custodian. And so it's about, the book is it's called The Custodians of the Cosmos. It's written about those who boldly go to clean up after those who just boldly went. So it's a little sci-fi, a little humor. I think
It's
you get a
funny.
kick out of it.
I haven't finished it yet because like we said, like we were talking about book reading earlier. I'm not very good at book reading anymore. I used to be so good at it. I used to be great, and then I got old and dumb brain. But it is so funny. I've read a good portion of the book, and it is very, very funny.
Yeah, it jumps right off the page at you the first couple pages to get you sucked in. So all right, so 3 questions right, you get the coffee mug. 4 questions right, you get the mug in the book.
Okay, cool.
Now, if you get less than 3 right, as Frank knows, and I'm gonna stop teasing Frank about this, although I am enjoying it.
I mean, I came close. I was so close.
He could have got the 3rd question right, but he said the answer that he changed his answer. So if you get less than 3 right, we make a meme out of you. We take a picture of your face and we do some funny stuff with it.
I'm totally cool. I was looking for an ejector seat under my seat.
No, we
I
couldn't
thought
get the
maybe
technicians
somebody
there.
came in and outfitted my studio.
No, we couldn't get the technicians there in time, so we're just settling for a meme.
Okay.
So what we'll do
I've
here
been
is
memed before.
all right. Well, there you go. Awesome. So what we'll do here is we're going to ask you some questions. I'll ask you a question. Frank will ask you a question. We'll go back and forth. Okay. And so these are all multiple choice. All right. And so Frank, if you look at the questions on the sheet, you get us started, and you should be able to tell which one is the correct answer.
All right. So, first question. I'll drop down into my announcer voice. How many suns did Luke Skywalker watch set every night when he was on Tatooine? Was it 4, 1, or 2?
Sons?
Yeah,
Okay,
how
I'm
many
going to say
suns
2.
set? 2.
Two.
He
Final
says
answer.
2. Final answer. He's correct.
Yeah.
The double sons of Tatooine.
Nice.
Which, is that the name of the Rebels episode, or is it the? I'm sure Nick is yelling off screen. He's like, no, it's the 2 moons of something, or I'm wrong. Who knows?
I think there's an episode called "The Moons of Lothal" or something like that.
Yes, the moons of Lothal. There we go. So that's why I'm mixing up the sons of Tatooine and the moons of Lothal.
Exactly. All right. So, and we'll see if you can answer this one. I'm not sure if this is mentioned in the first 3 movies that you've watched. So this might be our first wrong answer. All right. So which order brought about the death of the Jedi? Was it the First Order? Was it Order 66? Or was it the New Order?
New Order was a good band. I'm gonna go New Order.
No, it's Order 66. So yeah, I thought about that as soon as you said you've watched 4, 5, and 6. I'm like, oh, he might not get the order question.
Is the New Order the expanded universe before they had the First Order? Like, is that what that is? Like,
no, a New Order is what you do when you go back through the drive-thru at Burger King. I'm here for the New Order.
You're like, I forgot about getting spicy nuggets. I gotta go back. So next questions. What actress played Princess Leia Organa? Was it Carrie Fisher, Sigourney Weaver, or Linda Hamilton?
Carrie Fisher.
Very
You sure
good.
it wasn't Linda Hamilton? No, it
Yeah.
was Carrie Fisher. You are correct.
All right, so you got 2 out of 3. You've got 2 correct answers so far. Your next question: in which movie does Luke discover that his father is Darth Vader? Is it Attack of the Clones, The Force Awakens, or Empire Strikes Back?
Empire Strikes Back.
There you
Very
go.
good. All right, well, sir, you have earned yourself a coffee mug.
Excellent.
All right, you got a chance to get the book yet?
All right, here it is for the book. This is probably the hard one. How many parsecs did it take for Han Solo to make the Kessel Run? Was it 18, 12, or 7?
It's not 7. Okay, 12. I did the Kessel Run in under 12, 18. Gosh. I'm gonna say 12.
Yes,
Very
he is
good.
correct. He did it in 12 parsecs.
Excellent.
Good
Which
job.
I'm sure the true sci-fi nerds are being, a parsec is actually not a distance of length. It's a distance of time. It doesn't make any sense that he does it in a parsec. How does that even?
I push up the glasses there, right?
Yeah, right.
Thank you,
Tell you about a
Parsec.
parsec.
All right, so you got 4. You actually got 4 right.
Yeah.
So yeah, not too bad. So 4 out of 5, and so we'll make sure that we get you out a book and a coffee mug here, and we'll make sure that we'll have Drayton make sure that he vandalizes the front of it and put some writing in there for you.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, so hang out after we say our goodbyes to everybody, and we'll make sure that we have all your shipping information. Okay?
Great. This was a lot of fun. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, absolutely.
Thanks for being here, Scott. And where can people find out more about your book and other work?
Well, I don't have a book, but the
Oh, my bad.
podcast, the easiest way to get to the podcast is just type Behind the Bits into whatever app you use. But I'm also on the btbpc.com, and then you can get to all my socials from there. I'm either Behind the Bits or the BTBPC in different places because people have taken Behind the Bits from me. But yeah, that's where you go. And I also do a show on Thursday nights at 8 p.m. called the BTB Internet Talk Show, which is a lot different than my podcast. It's more of a wacky talk show, and I usually bring on comics, podcasters. Tim's going to be on, and we have some fun. We do a little promotion so everybody gets to be seen, and Dean Martin shows up. So
Hey.
Yeah, it's a lot of fun.
All right, I want
That's
to sing
good.
"Kick in the Head" with him.
And we will be sure to place those in our description so people will find out where you and all your other stuff lives. So
Great.
no
Thank you.
worries if you guys didn't catch it because we're talking so fast. It's down below.
Yeah, we'll make sure that's all included. So, and remember, guys, that subscribing to the Funny Science Fiction Podcast is the single most important thing you can do to ensure that we get more amazing guests like Scott to come by, share some laughs with us, more great co-hosts like Frank over at the Warp Shelf. So you want to make sure that you not only subscribe to our stuff here, but go check out Scott's work at Behind the Bits. Go check out Frank's work at the Warp Shelf, and make sure to sub to those guys as well, because there's some really great content coming from these two creators right here. And we're just so thrilled that both of you guys could be part of this today. And want to remind everybody that if you're not happy with the content of our videos, just let us know, and we'll be sure to force the offending party to perform a whole skit of Carrot Top jokes while wearing a Slave Leia costume.
Thank you, Scott, for coming today. This is great having you.
Yeah, it's been a
Thank
lot
you.
of
Thanks
fun.
for having me.
All right, goodbye, everybody. Thanks for watching.
Bye.
So, as a reminder, our show is brought to you today by our charity sponsor, the Red Shirt Widows and Orphans Fund. Imagine the comfort you're going to give Red Shirt Crewman number 42. He'll know that when he puts on that red shirt and gets murdered on the lava planet Mustafar by Darth Vader 17 minutes into a crossover episode that's never going to freaking happen, he will have the peace of mind that he didn't leave his family destitute and without hope. That's right, because the Red Shirt Widows and Orphans Fund has his back and that little bit that's left of his Starfleet badge.
On behalf of the rest of the hosts of Funny Science Fiction, we'd like to thank you for listening to this episode. If you'd like to be a guest on one of our future episodes, please contact us by means of our Facebook group, Funny Science Fiction. You can find us on Twitter or Instagram using the handle @FunnySci-Fi, or you can go to DraytonAllen.com and click the Contact Me link at the bottom of the page. Thanks again. Hope you enjoyed the episode.